Of today's is Sota Daf Chaf Sota Daf Lamed, but we're going to start on Chaf Tesama Beis, a third of the way down, where we have a Brisa Tanya. So it says the Brisa taught Amar Rabbi Yossi Minayin L'Ravi Bekodesh Shapasal. And the Brisa was taught that Rabbi Yossi said, how do we know that a Ravi, if something is a fourth degree level of removed from Tumah, and it's about Kodshim, it's about the sacrificial food, that we're going to say Shapasal. When it comes to the laws of pure Tumah and Tahara, something is called Pasal, it means that it itself is disqualified, but it doesn't have the potency to make something else disqualified. So how do we know that there's something called a Ravi Bekodshim that's disqualified? So Rabbi Yossi says we're going to derive it from a Kal Vachomer. Vidinu, it's a logical argument. Mechusar Kippurim, Shemuter B'Truma, just like by a case of Mechusar Kippurim, i.e. a person who's gone to the mikvah and has had nightfall. They just need to bring a korban in order to eat the kachim, but they're allowed to eat the truma, pasal bekachim, but they can't eat the kachim. Shlishi shepasal betruma, a third degree level of tuma, who's not allowed to eat the truma. Shlishi, so truma, what it means is that truma can become a shlishi. So therefore, a third degree level of tuma does apply to a truma. Eino din hushi as Ravi. So for sure, a truma can make something else into Ravi. And what's it making Ravi? The kachim. And how do we know that the shlishi, that kachim itself can become a third degree level of tuma? We know that from the Torah, and we learn it out that it can become a Ravi from this Kal Vachomer, from the Mechusar Kippurim. So shlishi l'kodesh min Torah. How do we know that kachim can become a shlishi, biblically speaking? If the korban shlamim touches anything that's tamei, it cannot be eaten. Milo askinan, are we not talking about the naga b'sheni? Are we talking about that some kachim here, the korban shlamim touched the second degree tumah? But Amar Rachbana lo yeyachel, and the Torah tells us still it cannot be eaten. And so therefore we're going to have this principle that shlishi b'kachim, that there is a shlishi b'truma. And how do we know a shlishi b'kachim in a Torah? And how do we know Ravi b'Kal Vachomer? How do we know that there could be a fourth degree level of tumah from a Kal Vachomer? Kedamar, like we just said, because the Kal Vachomer from a Mechusar Kippurim. So Rabbi Yochanan challenges, says he doesn't understand Rabbi Yossi. So he says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Tam b'ribi eni odei mahu. So Rabbi Yossi was a Tana, and Rabbi Yochanan was the first generation of the Amoraim, and he refers to Rabbi Yossi as b'ribi, which means like the Gadol Hador. That's what Rashi says. So he says, I don't understand Rabbi Yossi's logic. Shari Chuvaso B'tzido. We have a response to it. He had tried to bring a proof that there's Ravi by kachim from a Kal Vachomer from a Mechusar Kippurim. But what about the following? But what about food that was touched by a Tful Yom, by a person who went to the mikvah, was waiting for nightfall? Shepasal b'truma, he cannot eat truma. Ve'ino say Ravi b'kodesh. But if he touches, but that truma, presumably, it's not entirely clear how to read this, but it presumably means that he's saying that truma cannot then touch Ravi and make it kachim. The other way to read it is that the Tful Yom itself cannot make a Ravi by kachim. The Tanya, and we're going to see this principle, we'll see what Rabbi Yochanan is hinting to from the position of the Chachamim. Abba Shaul said, Tful Yom Tchila Kodesh, a Tful Yom becomes a Rishon. What does that mean? With Tamei Shnaim, it can make two things tamei. That means that it can make a second degree tumah and a third degree tumah, that they can make something else tamei, v'lifso echad. But it is able to make only the kachim, one of them. So that's the Ravi. Rabbi Meir says, so that's not what Rabbi Yochanan. So we're saying that Rabbi Yochanan was, well, anyway, first we see this position of Rabbi Avashal, which does seem to be in agreement, as the Gemara is going to say, with the position of Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Yochanan was not asking about that. Rameir Omer Metame Echad Uposel Echad. Rameir says it's like a sheni in the sense that it can make one the next degree tamei, like truma, to make a tamei that and uposel Echad, and then it will be able to go to kachim and make that a revi. Whereas the Chachamim Omer Kishem Shaposel Ochle Truma Umashke Truma Kach Posel Ochle Kodesh Umashke Kodesh. So the Chachamim say just like it can make truma post-sale, so too it can make kachim post-sale. So Rabbi Yochanan is saying that I don't understand what Rabbi Yossi was saying, that there could be a reviv by kachim from a kal v'chomer. And Rabbi Yochanan responds, I don't understand, because what about the tvul yom that is posel b'truma, but it doesn't make reviv b'kachim? And so, and his proof is from the Rabbanan, so that the Rabbanim say that it is that. So he challenges this from the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan are of the position that. So we see from here that just like the truma can make something pasul, and also it can all just like the tvul yom can make the truma pasul. So hold on a second. Let's just go back and see what the Chachamim are saying. The Chachamim are saying that the tvul yomer is not even considered to be like a sheni, that it can make a shlishi revi, which is the position of a mayor, but rather it's only able to make things pasul, meaning to say it can make the truma pasul and the kachim pasul, but not to make anything else tuma to be mitami other things. So that's what the Chacham say. Kishem sheposo ochle truma mashke truma, kach poso ochle kodesh mashke kodesh, but they're not making anything tamei to say it can go another degree. And so the Gemara assumes that Rabbi Yochanan is thinking that Rabbi Yossi holds like the Chamim, that truma or kachim that touch the tvul yom become pasul, but they're not tamei to make something else tamei. And so therefore it's a question of Rabbi Yossi, because if we're going to say that anything that is possible but truma is possible by kachim, by touching it, like he learned from the case of Mechusar Kippurim, we could have learned to call v'chomer also to people, to food that touch the tvul yom. It should also make the kachim possible by touching it, because food that touches the tvul yom will become disqualified. So it must be that we can't say this kal v'chomer from Mechusar Kippurim. So Maskef Rav Papa challenged this. Mimai Rabbi Yossi Rabbanan's for like. How do you know that Rabbi Yossi holds like the Rabbanan? Damak Abashal's for like. Maybe he holds like Abashal, and in fact he's saying exactly what Abashal said. The Amar Latame Shnayim V'Lifso Echad, and that's exactly what Abashal said. That the tvul yom is basically like a rishon, make two things tamei, one thing pasul. The Gemara says no. If he was really holding like Abashol, he should have brought a revi from kachim. He should have learned that there could be a revi from kachim from the tvul yom, and we would have said just like food that comes from a tvul yom, the tvul yom gufei mutter b'chul, and the tvul yom itself is allowed b'chul, and nevertheless amar oser revi b'kodesh, it can eventually make something revi kodesh. Ochel shlishi, but truma abba machmas sheni, the sheni gufei aser b'chul, you know, din shows a revi b'kodesh. For sure, the truma can make a revi b'kodesh, but he didn't bring that. If he would have held by Abashul, he would have brought that. And on top of Amar Alf, if you want to say he didn't bring that because he could have challenged it by saying Ma'al Tvul Yom Shekain Avatuma, he's not going to bring a proof from the Tvul Yom, because the Tvul Yom has in its category somebody could be a primary source of Tuma. I seen him in Mechusar Kippurim. He brought it from Mechusar Kippurim, and we didn't challenge that by saying Mechusar Kippurim could also be an Avatuma or Parche, and he didn't challenge that. So therefore, it must be that indeed Rabbi Yochanan's question is correct, because Rabbi Yossi must hold like the Rabbanan, now like Abashol. Amar Avasi, Amar Avasi, Amar Rav, Amar Rav, Amar Asi, Amar Rav, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Eliezer. So these five Tanoim, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Eliezer, Kula Sviru, they're all the position the ain't sheni osa shlish b'chulin, that there can't be a third degree level of chulin tuma. There can't be tuma by third degree, a shlishi by chulin. Can't be. So how do we know this? So we're going to cite all of these positions. Rabbi Meir de Tanan, kohaton bios mayim midivreso, from anything that requires immersion in the mikvah rabbinically. Miktame as a kodesh, uposel as a truma. It can make kachem tamei, uposel as a truma, and it can make truma itself just posel. Umuter b'chulin, umuter b'chulin of a meiser. Divrei Rabbi Meir. So Meir says it's allowed by chulin and by meiser. So let's look at what Rashi says. Kol shu tar min haTorah. Let's say something is tar, biblically speaking, but the Chachamim said that you need to put in the mikveh in order to make it tahor. Going abba rosh of rubim mayim sheuvin, v'ochel chatzi pras ochon tmeim. Let's say you ate a half a loaf of bread which was tamei. Vayadayim shetzrichim tefila, or hands that are considered sheni b'tumah. All of them are considered a sheni b'tumah, and we're saying under these circumstances they are mutter. So all of these things, mitame as a kodesh uposa as a truma. So therefore, mutter b'chulin u'meiser. That's the position of Rabbi Meir. That so therefore they make hektish to be a shlishi, and so that it can make something revi, and they disqualify the truma. And the Chachamim say that it's prohibited not only by chulin, that it's permitted not by chulin and meiser, but only by chulin. Chachamim osrim b'meiser. The Rashi says, what does that mean? They prohibit the meiser to eat it, but you can allow to touch it. And chulin, you're prohibited to eat. And so we see from here that Rabbi Meir is saying that chulin is a sheni only and not a shlishi, and that's proof for our position. Now the next position, Rabbi Yossi. How do we know that Rabbi Yossi says that there can be only a chulin, only a sheni, and not a shlishi? Ada Amran. That was the case we just said. He brought a proof from Mechusar Kippurim. Tim Isa. If it would, and it was the case that he's saying that chulin could be a shlishi, then he should have actually brought that the truma would be a revi, and the mechusar kippurim, and the kachim would be a chamishi. But he doesn't do that. He says that we see from here that the limit is chulin is a sheni. Rabbi Yoshua, how do you know Rabbi Yoshua says this position? The Tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah in Taharos, Rabbi Eliezer says, somebody who eats food, then we're going to say rabbinically, if you eat this food, you're going to become a rishon. If you eat food that's first degree tumah, Rabbi Eliezer says, rishon, you eat food that's a first degree tumah, you become a rishon. Sheni, you become a sheni. Shlishi, if you eat food that's a third degree tumah, you become a shlishi. Whereas Rabbi Yeshua says, rishon ve'ochel sheni, you become a sheni. If you eat food that's either first degree tumah or second degree tumah, you are what you eat, but not exactly. Rabbi Eliezer said you are exactly what you eat. Rabbi Yeshua says you become a sheni only. Whereas shlishi, if you eat third degree tumah, if you eat third degree tumah, you become sheni b'kodesh. Then you become sheni, meaning to say with respect to kachim, that if you touch kachim, then you're going to be mitameh. But ain't sheni b'truma, but you're not a sheni with respect to truma. And you're not going to disqualify the truma by touching it. How is it possible that that the food will be a third degree level of truma? How does Rabbi Yoshua say that's possible? It's because we say b'chulin shenasu al taros. Generally speaking, he's saying that chulin cannot become a third degree level of tumah. But in this specific case, the person is doing a mila for himself. But so he's saying that if this person is living his life as though the chulin is taros truma, he's living his life as though he's eating every chulin as though it has the purification process of truma, that he's eating it on a higher level. That's what Rashi says. Be'ezeh chulin amru she'ochel shishal and nasi sheni le'akdish. Under what circumstances do we say that if you eat food that's a third degree tumah by chulin, that it becomes a sheni l'kodesh? Meaning to say that's by chulin shenas al taras truma. That's by chulin that you're eating as though it's truma. Shaba'alayim kohen, their owners are kohen. V'ragel b'truma, and they have a practice eat truma. And he accepted upon himself the kibel olav le'echol chulin shabo b'taras truma. He accepted upon himself to always eat the regular food as though it's truma. Kadesh yeh ragel l'truma sav. So he's accustomed to always eat the truma tahara. Haskukolan hilkach mishkachas b'shlishi debechulin So under those circumstances, we find that there's a chulin by a third degree, but it's not real chulin. It's just this person is living his life and eating all chulin as though it's truma. But in general, chulin is not a shlishi. Who are these people? They're eating all their food as though it's truma food with a high level that they're taking. Even the regular food, they're eating it as though it's sanctified. What a very special spiritual practice to inspire all of us as well. That we're living our lives like chulin shenasu al taros truma. So we see from here al taros truma in al taros hakodesh that Rashi first of all says not everybody has this gear. So Rashi has a lot of issues with the gear in this whole daf, which is what makes it challenging. But Rashi says that the Taharas HaKodesh lo, that he doesn't eat it as though it's Taharas Kodesh, Tavu Chulin Greda. That is for sure Chulin. Shemat Veslun Taharas HaKodesh, Batla Daitov Emidvar Chulin. It's impossible to do that. But anyway, you can't eat your Chulin as though it's Taharas Kodesh, but you can't eat it as though it's Taharas Truma. Alma Kasavar ain't Sheni Otze Shlishi B'Chulin. We see from here anyway that there is no Chulin. The real Chulin is not a third degree Chulin. Rabbi Eliezer, how do we know that Rabbi Eliezer holds this idea that there's no shlishi by chulin? How do we know that Rabbi Eliezer says this? That Rabbi Eliezer says this. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Shloshton Shavon. So Rabbi Eliezer says that all of them are the same. What's all of them are the same? The Rashi explains that we're talking about a rishon, a first degree level of tumah by chulin, truma, and kachim are all the same. Shloshtan Shavin, they're all the same. Arishon, Shebekodesh, Shebechulin, Shebetruma, they are all able to make Mitame Shnaim. They're all able to make two things Tameh, meaning to say they can make a second degree Tumah and a third degree Tumah by Truma, Uposo Echad, the Kodesh. And Uposo Echad. And they're able to make one thing Pasul, i.e. the Kachim. So that's what Rabbi Eliezer is saying. And also that's only by Kodesh. When can he make one thing pasul? Only by the Kachim. And mitame echad, uposo echad. And also all of them are equal, that if it's a first degree tumah, it is able to make other things tameh, only one after it, uposo echad, and that is by truma, and also poso echad b'chulin. So it means to say that a chulin can become second degree tumah, a truma could become third degree tumah, and a kachim can become fourth degree tumah. And now we're up to the position of Rabbi Eliezer. A little complicated. This case is from case of challah. We know that challah is the dough that you need to take, you need to take a portion of the dough and give it to the Kohen. And Rashi tells us the introduction to this Mishnah in Mesechas Challah teaches us that the amount of challah dough you need to take to give to the Kohen is one. If it, regularly speaking, you need to take 1/48th. But if the challah became tamei, so if it became tamei intentionally, you have to take 1/24th, because we don't want the person who makes his challah intentionally tamei to benefit by saying, well, now I don't have to give it to the Kohen. So therefore, if it became tamei, you have to separate 1/24th. Rabbi Eliezer said, if you intentionally made it tamei, then what you need to do is what our Gemara is going to describe, that you need to put another one next to it, and you need to take a portion of dough and put it next to the tamei dough, and you need to take from the tahora onto the tamei dough, because you need to, but the problem is you can only take from the dough that's connected. So how should you do it that you're going to be able to connect the two doughs and then it'll still remain tahora? So how would it not become tamei? So what are you going to do? So that's what our Gemara is going to describe. So Rabbi Eliezer says what you do is that you're going to take, in this case, the challah from the tahora on the tamei, from the tahora dough on the tamei dough. Kate said, what do you do? Shtei Isros. Let's say you have two doughs. Achas Torah, Achas Tmeya. One is Torah, one is Tmeya. Notel Kedei Chala Meisa Shalol Churma Chala. So you take some dough. You take a portion of the challah from the dough that there was never separated the challah. And you put less than the size of an egg in the middle. So you're able to basically take from the dough that's the tar dough that's connected to the tamei dough. Rashi says mukaf means to be connected. So therefore you need to connect them because the challah can only be taken by something that was connected. And so therefore you put the tamei dough on one side of the bowl and the tar dough on the other side. And you put less than the size of an egg in between. And then the middle dough will be touching them. And since it's less than the size of an egg, it's not able to transmit tumah from the tamei to the tar. And Rashi says, "Kore shem al chala, u'misal tamim kriyas hashem." And then you call this chala, and then you separate them. And since it's less than the size of an egg, it's not going to make the tar chala tamei. And even though it itself is able to be mikabel tumah. Okay, so that is the point, that the less than the size of an egg can itself become tamei, but can't transmit it. The Chachamim on the top of Lamed Amud Beis, the Chachamim Osrin, the Chachamim say that you can't do this. The Chachamim say that you're not able to do this. So what do? B'tanya, and what's the position of the Chachamim? And the Brisa says, and there's a Brisa that says that this halacha of Rabbi Eliezer that you need to connect the two pieces. He says you can even do it with the size of an egg. And the rabbis of the yeshiva understood that the two opinions as to what Rabbi Eliezer was saying, Idi Isa Rishona. They're both talking about a first degree level of tumah, and it is v'chulin hatvulin l'chala lo k'chala dam. And everybody's at the position that chulin that was not yet taken chala is not going to be considered like the law of chala, that it could become a third degree level of tumah. So my law the Mar Savar, that one is of the position ein sheni osei shlishi, that one is of the position, Rabbi Eliezer is of the position that it can't become a third degree level of chulin, and so therefore you could put the egg or smaller than the egg in between because it can't become the tar dough cannot become tamei. Whereas the Chachamim say you can't do that. Mar Savar sheni osei shlishi b'chulin, and therefore you're making it tamei. And Amar Rav Mari, so Chamar position, even though it's the Chamar position, you can't do it because it's the size of an egg and it's transmitting the tumah. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer's in the position, since it's the size of an egg, even though it's the size of an egg, it's making a third degree level of chulin, and that's not a problem. And Amar Amari Berei de Rav Kahana, no, the Kuli Alma. Everybody's at the position that is second degree level of there cannot be third degree level of chulin here, even the Chachamim. But they're arguing whether or not the chala, which has not yet been taken, whether it is considered like chala. Mar savar kachala damu, mar savar lo kachala damu. One of the positions not like chala. And therefore, that's Rabbi Eliezer. He's saying it's not like challah, and so therefore, it's like chulin, and so therefore you can make it a third degree level because it's not going to be tamei. Whereas the Chum say no, since it has not yet taken the challah from it, it's going to have the din of like truma. Ibai say more. Alternatively, everybody says not like challah, and ain't shenios shlishi b'chulin, and everybody says you can't make a shlishi b'chulin. V'hacha. So everybody's saying that it's not like challah, and everybody's saying that you can't make a shlishi. But the question is whether or not you're allowed to cause chulin to become tamei in the land of Israel. So the chachamim, the middle piece is going to become tamei. So Rabbi Eliezer says it doesn't matter. We don't care that the middle piece is becoming tamei. You can make chulin in Eretz Yisrael tamei. Whereas the other position says you're not allowed to do this. And so therefore the Chachamim say you can't put this piece in between. You just have to take off 1/24 from the Tamei dough. So now the Gemara says, Bo B'Yom Darash Rabbi Akiva. And this was about the Tchumen. Rabbi Akiva says that we learned from that pasuk about 2,000 amos, the law of Tchumen, that you can't walk beyond a certain amount on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva said the position, Tchumen D'Oraisa, that Tchumen are biblical, whereas Rabbi Eliezer says that after 2,000 amos teach us about the fields and the vineyards, he says the principle of Tchumen is only D'Rabbanan. In Machokas Rishonim, when Rabbi Akiva says D'Oraisa, what's D'Oraisa? Is it the 12 mil that you can't walk outside your city, or 2,000 amos? And so that's what the Rambam says. But the Rosh says that no, all Tchumen is D'Rabbanan. Tan Rabbanan Bo B'Yom Darash Rabbi Akiva. That day Rabbi Akiva made a drasha. When the Jewish people went up from the sea, they began to sing. How did they say the Shira? Like an adult who reads the Hallel. And the Jewish people will respond, the heads of each chapter. Moshe said, Ashiru Hashem. Moshe said, I will sing to God. And that's what the people responded. Moshe Amru, Amar Kiga Oga. Moshe said the next verse, Kiga Oga. They also responded, Ashiru Hashem. Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yossi Aguli, says, Kikatan Amakras Hallel. He says it's like a minor who reads the Hallel, which means what? Like a minor responds to the adult by repeating everything he says. Moshe Amar Ashiru Hashem. Moshe said, I will sing to God. They said, I'll sing to God. Moshe Amar Kigoga. Moshe said, Kigoga. And that's what they responded. Kigoga. Rabbi Nechemiah says, Kisofer, which is like a, Rashi says it's like a person who's teaching the Torah. Torah to children. What does Rashi say here? Let me just find it. She says, "Kesofer Mohamed Tinokos, Mutadir Bebeis HaKnesses Upora al Shema Sarah Nodim." Meaning to say, it's like the chazan of the shul who's teaching the children. He's always there, and he's reciting the blessings of the Shema. Kesofer Aporas al Shema Bebeis HaKnesses Shu Posech Tchila. He just opens the first paragraph, the first words, and they respond. So, what's the dispute? The dispute is as follows. Rabbi Akiva Savar Leimor, when it says that the word Leimor, which is extra Vayomru Leimor, Milsa Kamaisa, that refers to, they said the opening chapter, the opening phrase, Ashiru Hashem. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yossi Aguli, Savar Leimor, Akol Milsa, means they repeated every single word. Rabbi Nechemiah Savar Vayomru, Ta'amar Kul Ba'adei Adadi. They all said it together. Omar, and what is Leimor meaning? The Patach Moshe Bereisha means that Moshe Rabbeinu started the phrase first. And we just have this last phrase, this last price. The Jewish people went up from the sea. They began to sing the songs of the Az Yashir. How did they say Shira? There was a baby, an infant on his mother's knees. And there was a baby nursing from the mother's breast. Kivin Sharo as Ashchina, once they saw the divine presence, the baby lifted up his neck, and the infant stopped nursing. And it says, this is my God, and I will glorify him. As it states, from the mouths of the infants and the sucklings, your foundation was strengthened. So we see that this is the idea that they were able to take the food, the nourishment from their mouth and stop and recognize the greatness of God. And isn't that the purpose, that we're able to appreciate God while we're being nourished? That's one of the fundamental teachings of our faith. And we'll stop here. This challenging daf, but a beautiful daf. We'll stop here. Anybody have any questions? Happy to address.